Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go.
Posturing. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is Wednesday, September 4th, 2024. Posturing. We all do it. MLB was in court yesterday talking to a judge as it relates to the bankruptcy of Diamond. You may know them as Bally's. You may think of them as the regional sports network where you watch your team. Posturing is something that's done when you believe that you have an opinion that may sway somebody when you don't exactly have the facts the way you want them. Posturing is something you do during the course of your day, every day, all day. It's sort of like peacocking, in my mind. The reason MLB has had to posture in this situation is they are trying to set up the players' union. You're going to read a lot about this story today. You may have read Evan Drellick's piece in The Athletic. You may see it on Front Office Sports. I want to take you a little behind the scenes, though, as to why lawyers for baseball would step into a courtroom in front of a judge whose responsibility it is to oversee the reorganization of Diamond. Remember, they're in Chapter 11. That means you're not going away necessarily. It means that you are trying to change the way your company operates, put in very simple terms, because you made deals that you cannot fulfill because the world changed. Do you know who would go into Chapter 11 bankruptcy? A company that makes typewriters. Man, I don't know what happened, but these computer keyboards started, and we got to figure out what we're going to do. The world's changed. But yeah, we made a deal that we were going to make typewriters. Can't make typewriters. Guess what? The world in which the regional sports networks signed long-term deals with teams, including my own, was a world in which cable subscribers were cutting the cord at a rate that was not increasing the way it started post-COVID. There was some tiny little eradication of the growth that we had seen in cable. There was some thought that people didn't want to pay for channels on cable that they weren't using, and that the cable companies were not going to keep paying the regional sports networks for the content the way they had been. But at the end of the negotiation, the regional sports networks knew what kind of money they were getting per cable subscriber from the big cable companies. They knew the rate. They would give a percentage of that rate to the teams that provided them with the content that they could sell. The regional sports networks were the middlemen, which is why in some teams, in some cities like New York, like Chicago, like Boston, they were able to cut the middleman. They started their own networks, and they sold distribution of their networks directly to cable companies. Teams like the Marlins were not able to start their own network because, A, they didn't have the money and they didn't have the market. So therefore, you got a middleman like Bally Sports, Fox Sports Florida, Bally Sports, name the network, whatever you want to call it. And that network would get the distribution, and then you would get paid a sum of money. You would take that sum of money and you'd put it into your budget. The greatest thing about TV revenue used to be that it was fixed and it was guaranteed. So you could put in your broadcast revenue. That was the line item in our budget. You could put it in your budget. And remember, I would carry around a 1 year, a 3 year, and a 5 year budget. A 1 year, a 3 year, and a 5 year player payroll. I would have an idea of which players we were going to have for 1, 3, and 5 years. We would slot in if there were a starter getting too expensive. We would do AJ Burnett at $5 million, AJ Burnett at $8 million, and then starter number 3 would be year 3 of a projection because we knew we weren't going to sign him to a long-term deal. And I use AJ just as an example. You may not have heard of him, but you should have. Great pitcher back in the day. The reason why it's so important to get fixed revenue is that is the way you can figure out what level your expenses are going to be. Variable revenue are things that happen that you cannot count on because they're not contractually obligated. Season ticket sales, fixed revenue. Naming rights, fixed revenue. Individual sales, variable revenue. So you add up all of these numbers, you make a budget, you have a payroll. If you don't know whether all of your revenue is going to be fixed, you can still make a player payroll. No MLB team has all of its revenue in the fixed category before the season starts. Many teams have much of their revenue in the fixed category, but most teams do not. The reason most teams do not is they don't have a ton of season tickets sold. They're not exactly sure if they play well. If we're competitive, we're going to have bigger crowds, more walk-up, more individual sales, more group sales, more food, more beverage, more merch, more parking. We'll have more sponsors who come on board during the season. We can budget for that. We can guess that. We can hope that given what our GM says that we're going to be a playoff contending team in September, but that is variable revenue. The money that we're getting from our TV partner, fixed. When you go out and make a payroll, you do that in October, November. We used to start doing next year's payroll budget in August of the previous year. We'd be working on next year's budget now for sure, and we would finalize the budget after the season. When you finalize next year's budget, let's say October 31, you have in there a downside case, a base case, and an upside case. And what I mean by that, and Coco, we may have gotten far afield, but I want to get through this if you don't mind. We have a downside case. Hey, the team's supposed to be good and it stinks. No one comes to games. Base case. This is what we expect from our team. This is what we expect from our attendance. This is what we expect from our revenue. Upside case. Holy cow. We have Jose, who we didn't expect to be up here, and look what he's doing. We have Dontrell Willis, didn't expect him to be up here. Look what he's doing. And look at the needle that's being moved. Here's the incremental revenue we're getting. Then we put a payroll in. Here's the thing. You can't have a downside, a base side, and an upside payroll. That does not make sense. The reason is that baseball contracts are guaranteed. We would have a payroll that we would get approved by our owner, having shown him the downside, the base side, and the upside. Here's what the payroll can be. You choose the payroll, and then we will tell you what the flexibility is in that payroll. Meaning, at the deadline, if things have gone sideways with revenue and we're on the downside, we have the ability to trade these 4 players by this date, which will save us this amount of money, which will make up for the loss of revenue because we're on our downside case. The owner would then say, what if we're being competitive? And I don't want to trade players. And I would say, well, you got to trade them. But if you really don't want to, and we're still in our downside case of revenue, then here's the check you'll have to write. We would give all of this information to the owner, as all team presidents would, who are good team presidents, not peacocking, saying that I was good, just saying that is what a president does. Your job when you run a company is to think about and deal with all these different cases. The goal as president was to minimize the variable revenue and maximize the fixed revenue. Seems pretty simple. Well, wouldn't you know it? TV revenue, because of this bankruptcy, has now become way more variable than anyone ever contemplated. And Major League Baseball is on its last wit. That has to be. Oh, no, that's not a mixed metaphor. You can say they're at their wit's end. So I was being clever. And by mentioning it, it's way less clever. They've had it up to here. If you're watching on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel. If you're only listening, my hand's at my chin. I would say MLB's wearing a snorkel. But why would MLB go into court, have their lawyer, a guy named James Bromley, say that Major League Baseball, quote, and those clubs are unable to plan to obtain revenue and to have certainty with respect to the 2025 season? He's saying that because there's no deal for several of their teams, like 9 of them. The lawyers said we can't go on and face 2025 in the first and second quarter of next year, meaning January through April of 25. Why? Because budgets for 25 are set actually in 24. That's me talking. This was MLB's lawyer trying to go into court and say, listen, Diamond may have cut a deal with the NHL that we talked about on this show and the NBA, but you kept it under seal. We don't know what the hell it is. We don't know what your intentions are with MLB. If you're demanding to keep the digital rights, if you're willing to give up the digital rights, if you're paying 100% of what you're contractually obligated to pay, we have no idea. The judge said, well, we're going to keep those sealed for competitive reasons. But the judge said that there's reason for optimism because the lawyers for Diamond said, hey, we're doing great. Just so you know, we've done the NBA and the NHL. We figured out carriage deals when you thought we were fighting for carriage deals for our networks. I'm telling you, we're rolling. I wonder exactly what that means. Does that mean that Diamond is ready to say right now to MLB that we're just going to pay you what we're supposed to pay you? You can bet your bippy that's not what it means. Because Diamond is not willing to do it because they can't. Because the new deals they cut with the cable companies, which are still under seal, are deals that give them way less money, which means they've got to give way less money to the teams who give them the content that they deliver to the cable carriers. Bad stuff tends to flow downstream, and MLB is sitting there in its PFD. They are ankle deep in brown, slimy water, and they're waiting to see whether there's a shark coming down to snip and nip at their ankles. And like any good swimmer, they just want to know. And they want to know now so they can figure out what to do. Of course, what to do is not perfect. If MLB does not get the deals they want, then the teams will not get the revenue that they were expecting. MLB will take a sum of money that was approved by the players to try to supplement the loss of revenue for these teams on the TV side. The players allowed it thinking, well, this will be great. Every team can get up to $15 million. Hey, players, we're going to have great free agency. Players are going to be signing left and right. It's going to be back to normal. Hip, hip, hooray. Sorry, folks. The free agent park is closed. And I think what John Candy meant to say there is that a $15 million payment from the league in order to help foment additional signings in a uncertain world of TV revenue is not going to cause teams or GMs or presidents to say, all right, let's raise our payroll by 15 million. It's going to cause them to say, all right, we now were able to cover some of the losses we were going to incur with the team that we're barely putting together that's not competitive, but we hope to God it could be. The players union, who I have a wait to see pending, is very frustrated over player spending, over the slowdown in the free agent market, doesn't want to acknowledge the reality of the new TV world. The owners are using the reality of the new TV world to keep free agent salaries down amongst the middle class, trying to keep payrolls in a responsible manner in order to try to profit on an operating basis in order to pay down some of the COVID accrued debt. You don't need to be a brain surgeon here to understand what's happening. The owners of the companies are trying to get The owners of the company are trying. Are we okay, Coca? I'm not sure if we're okay. We may not be okay. I don't know if we're on the air or not on the air. Can anybody hear me? Hi, my name is David. I've lost Coca. I've lost all. I feel like Matt Damon on The Martian. I don't know if anyone can hear me, but if you can, we're going to keep going. Thank you. I'll give you a clean cut now if you want, if you mind. Don't mind. 12/82/69. I have no idea where we were. What do you think of that, Coca? What do you think of them apples? Green. Oh, we were talking about teams and the fact that they have no idea what is going to happen to them. And you're going to hear the conversations that teams do when they don't have the TV deal, that we're going for the reach. We're going for as many fans to have our games and see our games as possible. It's total horse hockey. So where does this end? This ends with the judge trying to say in this case, hey, my name's Chris Lopez. We need to have a hearing as quickly as possible. Diamond saying, all right, how do you feel about November? Lopez saying that seems reasonable. MLB saying that does not seem reasonable. We got to get this thing going. We need it now. MLB is threatening all sorts of things. I like that. What exactly? They're threatening a more drastic legal remedy? What exactly would be more drastic? Here's what MLB must be thinking. I love you, MLB. It's so good. You walk into a Chapter 11 court like the judge actually gives a crap about payroll. Oh, we were talking about unions and the payroll. We'll get back to it. The drastic legal remedy would be to cut off all existing deals, take all the digital rights from the existing teams, go out and sell them, put on the games themselves, try to sell them and get a few pennies for over the air, try to put them on a few of the cable companies and replace what would have been the contractually obligated revenue from the RSN, and not coming close. Boy, that sounds pretty drastic. I'm sure Judge Lopez is shaking in his shoes. Meanwhile, the union is saying to itself, is this true? Are we being hoodwinked here? Do we need to come out on the side of MLB here? Because we know that if MLB does not get a favorable result from this reorg, then payroll is going to continue to go down. What the union doesn't realize, I found my way back, Coca. What the union doesn't realize, it doesn't matter what happens in bankruptcy court, because payrolls are going down, because signing long-term deals and longer deals is going to be difficult for teams to do because they're still trying to recover. And all the people in baseball can tell me I'm wrong, but they're wrong. The numbers are the numbers. Wait to see. I'm not a big fan of holdouts. Just want to put that on record. When you sign a contract, do your job. Report to work. It is true that people, when they hold out, generally, they tend to get paid. So that is enforcing bad behavior. Do me a favor, son, daughter. Keep crying for ice cream, because every time you cry for it, I'm going to give you what you want. That'll really teach you to stop crying. What about Haason Reddick? He's now the NFL's last remaining holdout. He's the Jets edge rusher, New York Jets. They opened their season against the Niners. The Niners were giving out contracts left and right, settling with holdouts. Trent Williams, I guess, is going to settle now. They just took care of Ayuk yesterday. They're all in. They love doing it. Here's the thing about a holdout. You're not showing up to work. You got all your teammates showing up to work. They're all putting on pads. They're all getting ready for the season. They're all under contract, just like you are. Don't forget that Reddick is under contract. So, what do you do if you're the GM or the coach of that team? Here's what Robert Saleh decided to do. And I want to hear what you're saying. I want you to hear what he says from his mouth. And then I want to talk about one of the quotes. Coca, play the video of Coach Robert Saleh asking whether he's disappointed that Reddick is not in camp.
There's no disappointment. It's you've got your roster, you got the guys who are here, and those are the guys you focus on. And hopefully eventually he does get here. And when he gets here, like I said, we're going to embrace him. We're going to love him. We're going to do everything we can to put him in a position to be successful, to achieve the goals that he's trying to achieve, as well as us. But I wouldn't call it disappointment.
I would call it disappointment when I negotiate a contract and then a guy decides not to show up. Now, one thing he did say that we didn't put in the tape is that to him, if Reddick ends up coming back in time for the game and Monday night against the Niners, he said it's like finding change in the couch. You know that feeling when you find change in the couch, or you find a dollar bill or a $5 or a $10 in your pocket because you forgot to wash your pants? You didn't realize you didn't put your money back in your wallet and in your money clip because you were too hammered. And then you put your pants on the next time and you're like, holy cow, this is like found money. The problem is that when you're putting your team together and you've signed players to play a certain position and you're paying them to play that position, that's not change in the couch. That's not found money. That is someone you counted on when you built your roster. Why would we say anything other than, of course, we're disappointed by the holdout? The guy's been gone for 43 days. We traded for this guy. Now, did he want an extension upon the trade? Whatever. Not our job. I've traded for tons of guys who said, it's like, what's the name of the guy? Come on, Coca. Be like right in my brain as I'm thinking it. The baseball player who didn't want to get traded this past deadline because he either wanted an extension or he wouldn't pitch in the playoffs, and he would not go to the bullpen. Garrett Crochet. Way to go, Coca. How did you pull that up out of nowhere? It's amazing. Not sure that that is something that ever wins the day. But that said, my level of disappointment is significant. And him being traded and then not showing up, it's 43 days. He's losing millions of dollars. Of course, he'll get it back if he signs. I guess he is going to sign. I don't want to do any more on my level of frustration on this guy. I guess I could do a wait to see. Are we really going to keep rewarding these holdouts? I guess the teams are. I guess you would say that Reddick is going to get paid. God forbid a team stands strong. This is not me being anti-player or pro-management. I just don't get the concept. Can you go into your work and do that? Listen, I'm so annoyed about my raise. I'm not coming to work. How would that go? Oh, you're not protected by a union, you say. That's what unions are for? That's what unions are for. Would you want anything at your work to be done to guarantee your safety? Don't you see all the things that are posted in the break room where you work about workplace harassment or workplace safety? Wear a vest, wear hard shoes if you're in construction, wear glasses if you're playing racquetball. There's all sorts of things that we do trying to maximize safety. Seems like a good move. If you can do your job the same, but it's safer and the productivity is the same, the output level is the same, I'm pretty sure you're going to do that. And if not, you're a moron. There are these new things in football, and I am angry about it, so I'm going to talk about it. I'm not grumpy angry. I'm disappointed. Sala style. Kylan Granson is a tight end for the Indianapolis Colts. He is wearing this preseason something called the Guardian cap. It is not a baseball hat worn in Cleveland. A Guardian cap is something, a shell that you put over a football helmet that has an opportunity to lessen the likelihood of traumatic brain injuries, otherwise known as concussions. It's the equivalent of when face masks were invented, or when hockey goalies said, I may want to wear something to cover my teeth. Or when hockey players were said, how about a helmet? And Ron Duguay said, nah, I like my wavy hair flowing. Carol Alt really digs it. I'm going to keep it that way. All right, you're grandfathered. So are you, Beck, but the rest of you wear some helmets. Now everybody wears a helmet. Baseball players get hit in the face with the ball. Well, how about this? We have a new thing that you can cover your jaw. You sure you don't want to wear that? Yeah, I think you all should. Everyone's wearing it. Standard. Everything that looks bad gets scrutinized by people because it looks bad. I want to see if we have a picture that we can show you. We do have sound of Kylan Granson, who explains why he's wearing it. But can we show people a picture, if we have one handy, of what that cap looks like? It looks awkward. It looks like a huge helmet. There were baseball players, pitchers, who were given an opportunity to wear something that would protect a comebacker hitting them in the head, but they found it too bulky, didn't look good, and felt they couldn't pitch properly with it because their balance was off. It's the same pitchers who didn't want to wear a pitch comm device because they said it was annoying to have a black stick in your hat and a voice. Now, I grant you the helmets look large. The caps look a little awkward, as you're seeing on DraftKings Network or on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel or wherever else this show is distributed. Not yet Peacock. I happen to think that players should not have a choice. If I'm the owner of a company and I've got employees doing a dangerous job and I have a piece of safety equipment to make it safer for my employees to do their job, I don't ask them. It's the rule. They've got to wear it. Why is Kylan Granson the only one who's saying this?
To have kids someday, I want them to also know that, hey, dad isn't just telling you to be safe. He also was safe when he played. Like, he did everything that he could to protect his head, to protect his brain, to protect his long-term health. I'm gonna get married this coming year. I wanna be able to remember our first dance 30 years from now. I wanna be able to remember my first kid's steps. I wanna be able to be there at their first day of school. Anything I can do to mitigate that, anything I can do, no matter how dumb it looks. It doesn't matter in the long term for me. Football's a game. I love it. I love it with all of my heart. But it's not worth putting my life, putting my family's life at risk. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than just looking cool. And if I can do the same things on the field and be safe at the same time, why would I not want that?
Standing ovation, Mr. Granson. I'm waiting. If you have it, contact me, davidsamsonpodcast.com, Twitter, David P. Samson. If you have a possible argument, any argument where that player is wrong, let me know. I'm dying to know it. If you know any older football players, my guess is you'll have no argument at all. And maybe if you've just been hit in the head too many times, you'll have an argument. I just can't think of what it is. What about kids playing varsity high school football, Friday night lights? You're afraid they won't look cool? You want them to look cool with their biceps and triceps showing and all the boys and girls there cheering them on? It's high school. Now, I grant you it's fun when you're doing it. There's a lot more life after high school. Hey, what did you do? Oh, I was very famous. You have no idea. When I was 17, I was a high school football player in Texas. And oh my God, I was so popular. Oh, what do you do now? Oh, it doesn't matter what I do now. Just know that 30 years ago, man, I was the shite. Would you give me a break? And I'm not trying to yuck on Friday Night Lights. I'm not trying to yuck on people playing football when they're young. I'm trying to say, what kind of parent would let someone play a sport and not take advantage of all the possible equipment that is there to keep your child safe? Just wondering. There's a state senator in West Virginia right now, and he is advocating for a student-athlete safety act. There's a middle school football player who died last year. This senator's name is Mike Stewart. He's going to introduce what's called the Cone-Craddock Student-Athlete Safety Act. He died last month, excuse me. What do you think this act is for? Well, if passed, it would require the use of these guardian caps for all elementary and middle school football as well as high school football practices. We don't want to get people upset about games. I don't want to lose my state senatorship. He actually had a quote saying the NFL has embraced guardian caps. If it's good enough for the NFL, it's good enough for us. Keep in mind, players in the NFL have the best safety equipment. NFL helmets are state of the art, updated annually, and can cost more than $1,000. Our student athletes aren't getting $1,000 helmets. In fact, I'll bet many of our student football players are wearing the same helmets that have been worn for years. Guardian caps are affordable. It's the least we can do to provide greater safety in competition on the field. David P. Samson on Twitter. DavidSamsonPodcast.com. I triple dare you. Send me the email. Send me the argument you have against the passage of this act and the requirement that kids wear the guardian cap. Oh, because someone has a financial interest in the company that produces them, and there's no proof yet that it actually works to cut down traumatic brain injuries. You know what? That's a chance I'm willing to take. Let's say it's even a tie with a chance of upside. Do you know what happens when you don't wear it? Then every one of those Friday Night Lights kids, they're cloudy with a chance of meatballs as they grow up. I just don't see the argument. And on the NFL side, give me a break. All you need is one conversation with Jim McMahon, and you're wearing the guardian cap. I am so positive that this guardian cap is going to be more common that I'm willing to actually make it a full wait to see. When I tell you something's going to happen, if it does, great. If it doesn't, fine. More players wear guardian helmets in 2025 than in 2024, meaning the guardian caps on their helmet. It's going to happen. And then we're going to look back, and this is just what players will wear. It won't even be a thing. And in terms of West Virginia, they ought to be the start. They ought to be the lead. This ought to be a federally mandated rule that guardian caps are worn for anyone playing tackle football of any age. You want less government interference? I want to pay less money in health care costs for all of the vegetables and all of the brain injuries. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, I'm going to tell you where I was last night, and I'm going to review a movie. And then we're going to talk about the Texas Rangers and an old Mets player that you may have forgotten about, Jacob deGrom. I bet the Mets wouldn't mind having him still. Maybe. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. Glad to have you here. Let's keep going. We got about 17 more minutes on the show today. You give me 50 minutes of your day every day, and I appreciate it. So does Coca, and so does Sarah. I do watch a movie every day, even today when I got another night of no sleep. I went to the Garden last night in New York, the world's most famous arena, to see Pearl Jam. I'd never seen Pearl Jam in concert before. I'd seen them perform. I'd seen MTV Unplugged. I had seen Singles, the movie. I knew the grunge scene. I knew Eddie Vedder. I didn't really know about a backstory about Pearl Jam, where they started. Songs were familiar to me. I just had never seen them in concert. And I had an opportunity to go, and so I went. And it's about 2.5 hours from here. And it took about 4 hours to get there and about 2 hours to get back. And you must think I'm crazy. But it was an experience, and it was fun, and it was interesting. And my ears are still ringing. Eddie Vedder is 59 years old and getting it done. The lead bass, Mike McCready, I don't know how old he is, getting it done. There's a good backstory for Pearl Jam and a good documentary that I watched. When I knew that I was going to the concert, I wanted to watch this documentary, which I'd never seen. It's on Amazon. It's called Pearl Jam 20. It is written and directed by one of my top 5 all-time writers and directors, Cameron Crowe. You know Cameron Crowe. You've seen Singles. You know Jerry Maguire. I hope. You hopefully have seen Almost Famous. I could do a top 5 Cameron Crowe right now, and it would needed to be a top 8. Well, this is a movie that he wrote and directed as a former rock journalist. He wanted to get back with Eddie Vedder and Pearl Jam and help them celebrate their 20th anniversary, and he went deep. It's over 2 hours. There's music mixed in, there's story mixed in, backstory. Absolutely fantastic. If you're one of those people that wants a life experience, that wants to go to a concert, and then you listen to the new album first before you go to the concert, so you have some familiarity, this is that. If, however, you're one of those people that just jumps into something new with reckless indifference, don't care if you don't recognize one thing, then probably you don't need to listen to the latest album or watch the documentary. Figure out which one you are. If you are a musical documentary fan, watch PJ20. If you have an interest in being able to not have a regret like I do, I never saw Supertramp, as an example. I never saw Queen, as an example. I didn't want to say I never saw Pearl Jam. Nothing personal pick of the day. Coca, where are we with Patrick Corbin? I think it's our third Patrick Corbin day in a row that we've lost. Max Meyer was going to be a great pitcher for the Marlins. Let me tell you about screwing up a pitcher, because I've done it. Screwing up a pitcher is when you call him up too early, and then you send him out because you're manipulating the service time, and then by the time you call him back, he stinks. And then when you called him up, he was great, and then got so great that not great enough to keep him, so you send him down to manipulate his service time, and then you bring him back, and he stinks. Max Meyer was a really, really good pitcher when the season started. They sent him down. Everyone was despondent beyond repair. We're sending him down to manage his innings, get some work, the Marlins said. Didn't exactly work out that way. He's been horrific since he got called back, but we took him over Corbin. And I've got very, very bad news for our situation with Patrick Corbin. We've won 11 times going against him. We've lost 7, but we're actually down money based on units, one unit being $10. We are down money on Patrick Corbin Day. But I will not give him the satisfaction, or Mike Rizzo or the Lerner family or anyone in Washington. I will not give you the satisfaction. We will go against Corbin as long as he starts this year. I promise you, no matter what. And you know what, Coca? We will end up money. He can't keep shoving it the way he has been. Now he's good. By the way, side note, is there a chance, Coca? This can't be right. Is there a chance that Corbin's in the last year of his deal? Is he all of a sudden turning it on right now in a drive to get a new contract next year? And he's been absolutely stinky up until this point? Can't be. There's no possible way. I don't want to believe it, so I'm not going to believe it. I'm just not going to believe it. Very upset. No, the whole point of the Corbin bets, Coca, is that he shouldn't be playing because he stinks. That he's been so bad that he should have been designated, and that they keep starting him, and there's no reason to start him, and that he loses every start. He is in the last year of his deal. Now he's pitching well in the stretch run. Do you think there's a GM out there who's going to say, hey, Patrick, you were so good, so good. We'll give you 3 years, $45 million. We'll give you a Seth Lugo contract. That's how good you are. I don't want to say that I will eat a solo cup of my own feces if Patrick Corbin gets a 3-year, $45 million deal from someone, because I would never do it, and you never know the irrationality of a particular owner. And I don't feel like being that guy because that guy's an idiot. But there can't be a scenario where Corbin gets that. So we lost that game. We went for the big underdog with the Rockies over Chris Sale. Chris Sale said, good luck, David. We're going to shove it up the Rockies. Keister, you can take your plus 320 and count it as a loss. And so we will. We are down to 114 and 120, having gone 0-2 yesterday. We got a good one for you today. We are New York. We are the New York Knicks. We're going to play some ball because we're the New York Knicks. I have that on my playlist. I go running to that. The Yankees beat the Rangers last night. Clay Holmes got his Major League Baseball leading 11th save. He has been an unbelievable stopper, just unhittable. The Yankees, with that lineup and with Clay Holmes at the back of their rotation, they are in great shape if you want to lose games. I did this with Alcaraz, and people got confused. Clay Holmes blew the save last night, folks, because he sucks. Clay Holmes should not be the closer, and Aaron Boone is being circumspect, but it's not up to Aaron Boone. How Brian Cashman has not gone down there to say Clay Holmes will not be the save, will not be the closer. We are going to put him in low leverage situations in the playoffs. Let him pitch the 7th and 8th. Maybe when everybody else's arm is falling off, we'll let him pitch the 9th. But right now, we can't do this to our team. The Yankees fell out of first place. Wyatt Langford, the rookie, walked them off with a grand slam. Do you know that Clay Holmes had a Blutarski ERA the first 20 games of the year? 0.00. Made the All-Star game. Clay Holmes was better than John. Now he's got a 5.15 ERA, 11 blown saves in 37 games since, and they've changed his name to Ron Jeremy. That's an old reference. The Yankees are second worst in baseball. They've lost 8 games leading in the 9th inning or later. That's second worst to the Rockies. Do you want to know the best way not to win a World Series? It's that way. It's almost a guarantee. Now, if people are still betting, and DraftKings has odds on who's going to win the World Series, there is a chance that people are still betting the Yankees as the favorites to win the World Series. But when you look at what's going on in their bullpen, and you know that you need pitching to win rings, I would tell you that those of you who are favoring the Yankees, and you are favoring them over every team but the Dodgers, that must be a lot of heart talking and not head. Or you must be thinking that Clay Holmes is going to turn it around somehow. It's over. The worst part about the blown save last night for Holmes is that they have to come back today and face Nate Eovaldi. When you blow a save, and boy, we've had closers blow a lot of saves. We've had some great closers. We had that great run of Benitez and Joe Borowski and Leo Nunez, Urbina and Looper. And then we worked our way into Bell before we found Cishek and Ramos. Man, I've done way better with closers. If you looked, Coca, at my career, and I've never done this, I assume somebody will now. I wonder whether during my 18 years I was in the top quarter of fewest blown saves. I mean, we didn't have Mariano Rivera, Billy Wagner. There were some really good closers. All right. My pick tonight is Eovaldi over the Yankees. Just know that. Eovaldi is minus 110 over Marcus Stroman and the Yankees. Stroman's been decent, mediocre. The Rangers have a problem. You know what's going on with the Rangers. I want to talk about it. The Rangers will become the 24th straight team, give or take one, to not repeat as World Series champions. They have struggled mightily. They're 66 and 73 this year. They're not going to make the playoffs. They will not get a chance to defend their title. What do you think has been the cause of that? You'd be surprised. I don't know if you remember watching the World Series. Remember Adolis Garcia and Seager and Simeon, and you couldn't get through the lineup. They had Evan Carter, the rookie, who was hitting close to cleanup, and you're just watching that team, and they were just mashing. Their pitching was good enough. Their bullpen was pitching really well, and they were hitting, and then they got fitted for rings. Why isn't it repeatable? Chris Young is the executive who was a genius last year. I always love that. You're always as good as your last season. Up and coming Hall of Fame executive Chris Young, who now is dealing with the realities of regression. And he actually said it. He said most of our struggles actually started offensively. Our identity last year is we were an elite offensive unit. This is him talking. We've taken a major step back. I can't deny it. He then went on to blame underperformance, which is true. We always blame that. Regression, that's a good one. We always blame that. Injuries. Underperformance, regression, injuries. It's the holy trinity of not having the season you expected to have. It's page 1 of the Man We Stink playbook. So, they look at their team after they won the World Series, and you so badly want to run it back, and you so badly know deep in your heart that it's not going to work, but you think, no, we've got the team to make it work. Injuries become a huge factor. Jacob deGrom, he is just beginning the process of coming back. He's doing rehab starts. He's actually been getting a lot of attention recently, which is funny. He and Max Scherzer have not pitched. Scherzer, I can't remember when the last time he pitched, I think he last pitched for Texas maybe on July 30th, maybe the day of the deadline, and he's missed the next month. They called it shoulder fatigue. deGrom is coming back from Tommy John surgery, and they're all trying to decide, well, is now the time? How do we feel? Do we want Jacob deGrom to come back? He's been pitching down at Fresno. I have a suggestion. You want Jacob deGrom to put on a big league uniform and to appear in a big league game this year. You do not want him pitching multiple games, multiple innings. It's not necessary. You want to get him back into a routine where he's in his starting routine as a major league pitcher. He takes the mound to face major league hitters in games that you know are meaningless because your team is out of the race. You pitch him 75 pitches, and then you put him on regular rest. You have him come back, and you pitch him 85 pitches, and that's it. I want him to come back in time to make 1 or 2 appearances because my best hope is that that helps the player have what we call an NOS. An NOS is a normal offseason. An NOS is not a rehab offseason. It's not a coming off of injury offseason. We would always want a player who had missed time to somehow make it back, to get an at-bat, to pitch an inning, to get a start. Because players in their head, and I get it, I totally get it, if you have not gotten the rep at the big league level, then the offseason in your mind can't be normal because you're not doing what you've always done in previous off seasons when you've been playing, and then you take your rest in November, part of December, then you start ramping up. Then when the calendar turns to January, you get super serious, and then you report to spring training ready to rock and roll mid-February, and then come end of March, beginning of April, it is go time. You have that routine. You have that plan. If you've not appeared in a big league game or you end the season injured, by definition, you're off the plan because you don't rest after the season. You got to continue to rehab, and you're rehabbing not with the goal of getting back in 4 to 6 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks or 8 to 12 weeks. All of a sudden, when the season ends and you haven't come back, your rehab is, oh, I want to be ready for spring training. You'll read that a lot with injuries that happen. He's hurt. He should be ready for spring training. He will be ready for spring training. But there's that kernel of a doubt in the player's mind, because any sort of testing that you do, and we've sent players to winter ball or done simulated things during the course of the winter, it's just not the same. So Jacob deGrom is close, and people are wondering, should he pitch or not? And my answer is 100% he needs to get back on the mound. I'm completely letting go of the reality that he signed a contract that is so outrageous that the Rangers are totally screwed. They've given him $70 million already, and he started 6 games over 2 years. 6 games. He's gotten $70 million. And they still owe him $115 million over the next 3 years. In a contract that they have learned to regret almost from the minute they signed it. But that said, he's untradeable. You would absolutely have to pay a part of his deal the way the Mets did. He cannot be counted on to be one of the best pitchers in baseball, but you got to think about getting something from him. And the way to get something from him is to bring him back now. This whole back and forth that you're reading about the rehab starts at Round Rock, forget about it. I want to see him in the big leagues. Because next year when the Rangers start and Scherzer's finally gone, thank God, they got to have deGrom in that rotation. And they got to see, hey, it's 2 out of 3 years. Last year was the anomaly when we had the regression. This year, we're back to being a World Series contender. Just you wait. Please buy season tickets. It's fixed revenue. It's just business. This is nothing personal.